Hey there everybody, Mazarok here, and today I am talking Blood DK talents and potential builds. I'm doing this now because it does seem like tuning for tanks has been winding down. Over the last few weeks, we have gotten very minimal tuning across the board for tanks, except for bears, which for some odd reason they just keep nerfing. Don't know why, but Blood DK, Monk, Warrior have seen very targeted and specific tuning, and nothing really, no across-the-board sweeps or anything like that. Disclaimer, that can change at any single moment. We could just literally see a tank post with absolutely everything being changed. But it does seem like everything's kind of in place for where they want it with tanks, especially with pre-patch being released in just a couple of days. And the reason why I want to do this is I have pre-patch survival guides coming out for Warrior, DK, and Paladin, and I feel this is going to be a very good primer because I'm going to be having to cover a lot in the pre-patch survival guides with, of course, Covenants, Soulbind interactions with talents, and talent builds and things like that, where I'm going to try and minimize and just try and make 2 equal videos instead of a crazy long video there, right? So we're going to do that this way and then go from there. But before we do get into it, I'm happy to announce Blood Death Knights, you get your own shirt at my store. I'm the healer now. You can get this in t-shirts and hoodies. Link down below. If you have ever seen yourself top the damage meter and you just get literally just, I'm the healer now, you have a shirt for you. You can also get your I Only Do Dungeons Fully Erect and Plate Tanks Do It Better shirts at the link down below. My patrons now have access across the board to an extensive living document for Paladin, Blood DK, and Warrior. The Paladin one is, the spec tree's not done yet, but will be out in the next 48 hours, of a full breakdown of talents and go into much extensive synergies and things like that than I can do in a video, because in a video I'll end up talking for hours and hours and hours, where I can simply type it out and alter as I need it. So if you're looking for any more current up-to-date anything, you can check out my Patreon link down below, and as well there's other goodies there. There's a Twitch link down below if you wish to watch me stream, and a Discord link if you just want to join a wonderful community of people, or if you have any questions to ask about anything you see here. Let's get into it. So right off the bat, Blood Death Knights, if you only picked up the class in Season 3 because it was the Flavor of the Month class and you saw how much they were pumping, get ready, because this is gonna hurt. We're going back to an old school style of play for Blood Death Knight. The fear of getting globaled at the start of a pull is very, very real. And to me, this, I'm happy. I preferred the playstyle of Blood Death Knight in Seasons 1 and 2, although the DPS was very low in Season 1 and 2 in comparison to other tanks, but the spec was just so much more fun to play. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the power behind Season 3 and 4, but the playstyle was pretty degen, right? Spam Heart Strike, equal win, do big damn. That's not fun. So there is some major changes coming to here. So let's get into the class tree first. The way that I did this is something that I kind of come up with on my own. I did look at other higher end Blood Death Knight builds and things like that they were doing, but there is some options to change around here and move. So don't think there's, because you see this. By the way, Empowered Rune Weapon is actually chosen here. My camera's just hiding it right now in pre-patch. I can't move this in beta, so I guess I could just make my camera smaller, but here we are. Go down the left side for Mind Freeze and Permafrost. Permafrost is one that is a talent that I actually think we're going to be able to talent out of as we get gear, but the frost shield that this gives is actually decently significant enough that a 1 point in the early stages is worth it, especially while we're still trying to get the stats that we need to be able to live and move forward and all of that fun stuff. You can go with Cold Thirst or Blinding Sleet if you do not want to take Permafrost, but the shield is significant enough where, especially as we're kind of learning to go back to old school Blood, this is actually going to be pretty decent. Then we go with Icebound Fortitude. Going down the right side here, we're going to go with Anti-Magic Shell, Improved Death Strike, and Veteran of the Third War. This will unlock the middle, but we're not done. We go to the right, and then we go to Raise Dead, cleaving strikes for hitting more things within Heart Strike within D&D. This is very, very important because our new build is very Death and Decay focused. This one here, you can actually choose which one you want: Sacrificial Pact, Control Undead, or Enfeeble. Enfeeble is got an atrocious proc uptime. It's really, really not great. But there's like almost nothing to control Undead that I've seen in the new dungeons. Very, very minimal, like very situational, so it's almost not worth the talent point. But you can go with Sacrificial Pact if you do not want Enfeeble. But we do want Brittle, because Brittle actually does end up having like a 30% uptime, and this is pretty good for a, your diseases have a chance to weaken your enemy, causing your attacks against them to deal 6% increased damage for 5 seconds. This, like I said, 30 to 40. It's been 30 to 40% in my dungeon testing. This is actually worth the point. Then we go down here where we go. I prefer AMZ because AMZ extra defensive. There's lots of magic damage and there's lots of environmental magic damage or big boss damage, magic damage that's coming in. Anti-magic shell is going to be very, very good and very worthwhile. Merciless strikes increases critical strike chance by 2%. This node on its own is not great, but we want to get to Gloom Ward. Absorbs are 15% more effective on you. These are things like AMS, Permafrost, Frost Shield, Blood Shield, anything like that, and including AMZ, it's 15% more effective on you because it is an absorb. All of these things add up, and this is an insanely good talent point to take for 1 point. Take Acclamation for Icebound's Fortitude to be brought down to 2 minutes instead of 3. Now the tooltips here at the first one says 2, but that's because Acclamation is talented. Then we want to go into Runic Attenuation. Our auto attacks have a chance to generate 5 runic power. This is going to help that resource generation throughout the pull and kind of combat some bad play from time to time. Like let's say you kind of you death strike twice in a row and you didn't mean to, or whatever have you not. This is going to allow you to kind of just generate more runic power as it goes on. And then on the right side here, we want to go with Might of Thessarian. Strength 2%, basic, but it's really good. Unholy Endurance. Lichborn's duration is increased by 2 seconds. And while active, damage taken is reduced by 15%. Now, Lichborn does give you 10% base leech. And so this is a 12-second cooldown, and it also makes you immune to Charm, Fear, and Sleep. But there hasn't been too much Charm, Fear, and Sleep effects in keys, but that leech and the extra DR is very good. It's a 2-minute cooldown, and we don't have a lot of ways to mitigate a lot of damage, right? We heal ourselves back up, so this is going to be pretty good for hits and just gives you something else in the toolkit. Now, I have a point here in Asphyxiate, but you can quite easily put that point into Blinding Sleet if you want. I was testing both separately, but there were more times when I had Blinding Sleet that I would say to myself, man, I wish I had Asphyxiate right now, versus when I had Asphyxiate, I'd say, man, I wish I had Blinding Sleet right now. I think Asphyxiate is going to be the better targeted ability. A 5-second stun on a 45-second cooldown is just really, really good. A couple honorable mentions before we get into the last portion here. Yes, I know I'm skipping Unholy Ground. I want to talk about that separately. Anti-Magic Barrier, very, very strong for high magic scenarios. March of Madness makes you go more zoomies. There's Avoidance and Leech, which is probably going to end up being seen more play in higher keys. But we do have enough leech with the spec tree that we might be able to get away without blood scent, but that's something to look at. Assimilation is going to be really, really good for raid, and there is going to be some scenarios in Mythic Plus where this could be good, but we just don't have enough points to get everything that we want, because that's the way it works. And I do want to talk about Grip of the Dead. This is something where you can opt out of something and choose this. Whatever it is you feel you need, if you want more control, you can go with Grip of the Dead. Okay, now as we go down, on Holy Ground, you gain haste, 5% haste while you remain within your Death and Decay. We combine that with Death's Echo. Death's Advance, Death and Decay, and Death's Grip have a one additional charge. We are going into a very focused, stand your ground, I'm healing myself, and I'm not moving ever kind of meta for blood DK, which is kind of what we're already good at, so it plays to our strengths, right? This is also going to allow us to have 100% uptime on Death and Decay. This is something you are now going to want to track the duration of. As Death and Decay gets down to less than 1.52 seconds, you're going to already wanting to be playing your next global to be putting down a Death and Decay, which means your global before that at like 2.5 seconds-ish, is going to have to be a Death Strike to top yourself up, because you do not want to lose the synergies with the haste, which the haste is very much needed in early Dragonflight progression, but then there's also extra bonuses that we're going to get from that in the spec tree. Will of the Necropolis, easy 2 points. This here is just what allows us to be incredibly tanky as we ping-pong our health through. Rune Mastery, strength increase for consuming a rune. Now, it is a chance proc, but it does proc well enough. And Sloppy Hands is coming back. Enough said. Great ability for Mythic Plus. Insidious Chill, your auto attacks reduce the target's auto attack speed by 5% for 30 seconds, stacking up to 4 times. This is basically a curse of weakness that Warlocks had. This is something you're just going to be able to place on as it goes on. Place on passively, sorry. Really good, all around solid, especially when you start getting into like tyrannical keys, pushing keys, things like that, where auto attacks are usually the main form of damage intake that tanks are having at high levels of play. Icy Talons, your runic power spending abilities increases your melee attack speed by 6% for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. This is basically Death Strike. Death Strike. You can just remove this with your runic power spending abilities. You could just say Death Strike, but whatever. This sees also synergies with Permafrost and, of course, a Runic Attenuation. It all pairs very, very well together. And then Empowered Rune Weapon. Empower your Rune Weapon, you gain 15% haste, you generate a rune, and 5 runic power instantly and every 5 seconds for 20 seconds. So every 5 seconds you're gonna gain that bonus while having 15% haste, which feels so nice. This is the build that I've been running mainly and has been feeling very, very good for class. Now, like I said, there are some things that might change here, but as I've been running more blood keys, this is through all my little tinkering and tweaks. This is how I've been running it, and I've been feeling really, really good. I peaked at 101k HPS on a poll the other night. So very, very lots of things that you can do to heal yourself up a lot. As we go over into the spec tree, you're obviously going to go Heartstrike, Marrow Rend, Blood Boil, Crimson Scourge, Vampiric Blood. Our damage is really lackluster right now, so you absolutely want to put the 2 points into improved Heartstrike, so increase Heartstrike damage by 30%. I tried running without this, and it felt bad. And you want to put 1 point into Discaress, and then 2 points into Ossuary. I know, I'm going to get into why I'm not doing improved Vampiric Blood in a bit, once we get down towards the bottom of the tree. So, if you're about to comment that improved blood, I do have reasonings for this. We're going to go down the middle, Dancing Rune Weapon, Insatiable Blade, and Everlasting Bond. This gives us a very minimal version of our legendary tier set combination from Shadowlands. This does not extend Dancing Rune Weapon anymore. There's no more Heartstrike spam. This will just give you 16 straight seconds of Dancing Rune Weapon, but we do have abilities that, cool it down, with obviously Crimson Rune Weapon returning back as Insatiable Blade, and the 2 copies of Dancing Rune Weapon with the Everlasting Bond. On the left side, Heartbreaker. Generate more runic power per target hit. Very good. Leeching Strike. This is more of a pathing choice than it is something that I just want baseline, but it does provide some healing. It'll give you 2.5% maximum health per Heartstrike when you're in combat hitting 5 enemies with Heartstrike, which is not great, but it's not nothing, right? It's not like this is a talent that you're just taking that's never going to get used. It is something. Then we want to go over to the right here for Improved Bone Shield to increase your haste by 10% while Bone Shield is active, which it always should be. And then we have Blood Tap. Now, Blood Tap was a questionable decision in Shadowlands. It just gave you more runes all of the time, which allowed you to extend Heartstrike. The Dancing Rune Weapon, but now this is actually going to allow you focused around runic power generation and to use this more tactfully, but it is a really good option to take. We go over to the right side of the tree, Hemostasis, solid pick. This is more for pathing these two. I've tried to work around these, but Coagulopathy is just so good. Man, I pronounced that right on the first time. Relish in Blood and Rapid Decomp. There is synergies with Rapid Decomp and things like Umbilicus Eternus and things like that. I mean, these are just, they're passive. They'll give you stuff. They'll give you more stuff. better than nothing, right? But you want coagulopathy. I think I said it again right. Whew. Enemies affected by Blood Plague take 5% increased damage from you, and Death Strike increases the damage your Blood Plague deals by 25% for 8 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This really does ramp up Blood Plague's damage in single target, and in all honesty, like right now in Shadowlands, like Blood Death Knight's AoE is absolutely wild, and their single target is really good. This talent has definitely allowed Blood DK's single target to stay a lot more relevant, where Blood DK's AoE has dropped significantly going from Season 4 to Dragonflight. Their single target, not as much, right? It's less of a hit, and this is a very, very good thing. And then I opt for Voracious here, but this is a flex point. You can opt to go down to Umbilicus Eternus, and I have done both, and I see pros and cons to each. Voracious is just something that's more constant, because you're going to be taking a lot more damage, because you're not parrying at 70 to 85% effectiveness that you are now. So you're basically always going to have this 15% leech baseline, and Death Strike's healing is increased by 20%. I was running some Halls of Valor last night, and there are many times where I was sub 10%, and one Death Strike just brought me up from 10 to 100 instantly, and then I had to do it again 5 seconds later. There is, like, Voracious is a very underrated and is definitely a good constant. Then we get into the Capstones. I'm going to go right to left here for a couple of reasons. There's 2 big things that I want to talk about. The last one here is our damage profile with Tombstone, Shattering Bone. Now, Sanguine Ground, this just increases the death and decay meta that we're kind of entering. You deal 5% more damage and receive 5% more healing while standing inside your death and decay. So you always want to be inside your death and decay, and you always want to have one going, but now you're going to have to play the little mini game of knowing when there's incoming movement, because the last thing you want is to place a death and decay and then have to move 2 seconds later. So there is going to be some dungeon knowledge that's going to have to be placed inside of this playstyle. Red Thirst reduces the cooldown of Vampiric Blood by 2 seconds per 10 runic power spent. And Ironheart is one that I actually really enjoyed, that I didn't think I would. Blood Shield's duration is increased by 2 seconds, and its absorbs increased by 20% more damage. Now, if you know what Blood Shield is, it's based on your mastery, and it's a physical damage shield. This is also affected by Gloom Ward. Lots of nice absorb synergies here, right? And then you can easily put 1 point into Umbilicus Eternus if you wish. Now, what Umbilicus Eternus does is a new talent. So after Vampiric Blood expires, you absorb damage equal to 5 times the damage your Blood Plague dealt during Vampiric Blood. So this is going to be a good single target and a good AoE. Finding it's the middle ground, so if you're only pulling 3 to 4 mobs, this is where it's going to be the most lackluster, but if you're double pulling, this is going to be huge. But in single target, it's also going to be great because we're combining it with coagulopathy. This is going to be a fun one to say all expansion long, guys. But what happens is now is with the keys that I'm running, by the time I really need Vampiric Blood, by extending the duration of Vampiric Blood by another 4 seconds to make it, 14 seconds, I was not actually bursting the shield very much by the time I was the pack was dying, and it was seeing less play. But in higher keys, you could start putting more points into Vampiric Blood and have that more often, but being able to, and that shield will be bigger because it lasts longer, so your Blood Plagues are going to have more ticks, and there's all those bonuses that come along to it, but you want to kind of play this style of, you want it to come off cooldown a little bit better so you can get the absorb. Even if it's smaller, you'll get more use out of it, but it's all depending on the key level that you're in. In higher key levels and the longer packs take to die, the more Umbilicus Eternus is going to see more play and more, just generally more usefulness, right? A point that I have enjoyed taking, though, is Heartrend. Heartstrike has a chance to increase the damage of your next Death Strike by 20%. This I was playing with and actually has a decent uptime. This is not a bad pick at all for both single target and just straight up passive healing. Gorfine's Grasp, I'm finding trouble taking this. And not because I don't want it, I really do, but Blood DK is losing a lot of power, and right now I'm trying to focus on survivability. This is a 2-minute base cooldown, but we have Slappy Hands now to replace it in the class tree, so you can forego this if you need to in Mythic Plus and not lose a lot and gain a lot of healing and things like that, right? Going over to the far left, we're going to take Tombstone. Tombstone is going to be, like, I don't even know why Mark of Blood is an option here. You're never going to take it. Take Tombstone, because now, on top of the synergies of reducing the cooldown of Dancing Rune Weapon by 25 seconds every time you use it with 5 Bone Shield stacks, which you should be, we also now have Shattering Bone. When Bone Shield is consumed, Tombstone consumes, it shatters, dealing X amount of shadow damage to nearby enemies. This damage is tripled when you are within your Death and Decay. This is why 100% Death and Decay uptime and playstyle is very important, because Shattering Bone is by far one of your highest damage dealing abilities. So Death Strike, Shattering Bone, and then we have our regular melee White Swings, because that's just the way it's going to work now. So you want to play around Shattering Bone as best as you can, and in high AoE packs, Shattering Bone is really, really solid because it deals triple damage inside your Death and Decay. So just to kind of reiterate here, Death and Decay increases your haste by 5%, cleaves your Heart Strike to 5 targets, gives you 5% damage and healing every time when you're inside it, and of course you get the bonuses of Relish and Blood and all of these fun things, right? So you're really gonna want to stay in there and really want to play in there. That's really, really important. But the nuke that you get from Tombstone and just consuming 5 Bone Shield charges to Shattering Bone times 5 inside your Death and Decay is very, very noticeable and really, really fun. But now you're entering this playstyle where before you hit Tombstone, you want to make sure the Dancing Rune Weapon's on cooldown to get the cooldown from that, so you can both simultaneously get the big nuke and the cooldown reduction from Tombstone. So Tombstone is going to be a core ability that you're going to have to tactfully play around. But all in all, I'm really enjoying this new version of Blood. Lastly, I do want to talk about Death's Caress, because Death's Caress now gives you 2 Bone Shield charges for the price of 1 rune. Death's Caress will give you 10 RP and 2 Bone Shield charges. Marrow Rend is 2 runes, will give you 3 Bone Shield charges, but it will give you 20 runic power. So this is going to have to be something you're going to play around to know when runic power is more important than your runes, or to know when your runes are more important than your runic power. Basically, when you open, like when you open on a pole before you even get into melee, your Death's Caress is going to be that much more important to go into, especially if you have no Bone Shield charges at all. I did a run last night where I was like, all right, I'm not going to hit Death's Caress. I want to see how bad this feels. Holy crap. No, you want to be hitting Death's Caress when you're going into a pole, even just one target, whatever. But this is going to make things feel a lot better. Alright, I just talked a lot, but I do, so yeah. Basically, Bloodshot, Mythic Plus, completely useless as well, by the way. This never had any uptime enough where this actually mattered, but this is actually going to be pretty good in Raid. When you're off tanking, you can gain that Blood Shield from Death Striking or whatever have you not, as long as there's some passive damage for you to heal, and as long as that Blood Shield is active, you gain 25% increased physical damage, which synergizes with Permafrost. Lots of goodies to be had there. Now, is this the final build? No. It is not. I don't think this is going to be the final build. I'm still playing and tinkering, but I do want to give a damage breakdown on my thought process as a whole, and this is what I did here. There are some things that I really wish I could take as well. Rune Tap is one that I'm going to be finding a way to take, and if there's something I'm going to give up, I'm going to give it up to take it, because the start of the pulls right now are still very dangerous for Blood Death Knight. So you want to make sure that you have some sort of damage reduction going into a pull if you're not set up, because it's not as easy to set up as it was seasons 1 and 2, as season 3 and 4 of Shadowlands, but it is easier to set up than it was in seasons 1 and 2. So there is some trade-off there, but all in all, Blood's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Blood's going to be a lot of fun. Have yourself a good one. Happy tanking, and thank you to all of my patrons for all your support. Can't do it without people like you. Have yourselves a good one, and happy tanking.